It's so cute. Apparently the Ram did his job.
Seems early.
No,
Is late. Are they this early?
this is about the right time.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your whole family.
we kind of staged it out as far as we possibly could. So I don't know how. One of my kiddos got sick 2 weeks after the other kid, and they share a room and a bed sometimes. So I'm like, why did it take this long for you to get sick? Like, come on. But for a minute, I was thinking maybe she got it already.
No?
Okay. No luck.
I have that mixed
Pledge
up on the
is
agenda.
not official. Yeah, we did the pledge first. I think that's important.
Yeah, are you gonna do it? Before, if we had to switch these two real quick, I said, no, you go get it.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, he said I'd do it at the same time. So he said I'd do the allegiance.
We got checks already?
Stand.
Six
And then
months.
you guys can just read this off the same.
All right, well, let's get started.
We
You'll
did.
all stand, please. Yeah. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Okay.
Up is swearing in of the new officers.
Aaron and Michelle, if you will stand and raise your right hand and read from the following.
I, Michelle Jocko, do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of Eskridge City Maintenance. So help me God.
I, Terry Cook, do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of Eskridge City Maintenance. So help me God.
I think you should get a mayor.
Oh. Yeah.
Do I need to adjust
No, yeah, we'll change your oath and come
on the paperwork?
sign it. Yeah, it's okay.
We'll decide that paper tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll have another one.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, call to order. Starting with Michelle.
So here.
Annie.
Here.
Justin, here, and Tim.
Present.
Brett is ill, so he will not be here tonight.
I move to adopt the agenda.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add one thing to the end, just a brief discussion of Open Meetings Act issues. I was going to give an update to the council and to the mayor about your duties under that act.
Sure.
I have a handout.
Where do you want that on?
Just,
Yeah, at the bottom. Before,
Yeah,
just before adjournment.
yep. Please.
Mr. Luckman, we can't hear you out here. What did you just ask for?
Sorry, to add to the agenda to the end, a discussion of the Kansas Open Meetings Act requirements for council members and mayor.
Thank you.
I move to approve that addition.
A second. We have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. We'll have a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Motion to accept has passed. Approval of the minutes, December 27th.
I move to approve.
I second.
We have a motion to approve the meetings of December 27th, and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, All in favor? Motion passed.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance 1493.
A second.
We have a motion to approve the ordinance 1493 and a second. Any discussion? I have one question.
Mhm.
Where are the invoices for all these things?
Right here.
All of them are here?
Yep.
Okay, and who reviews them?
Me.
You do?
Yeah.
Is there a check? Anybody check that?
Tim writes or signs the checks and then, no, I mean, they're here.
Okay.
They're meeting. They're here
And-
last time.
Okay. And are we a one check signing system or two?
3.
Three people have to sign the checks?
Mhm.
Okay. And who are those 3 people? Any 3 on the council and the mayor or what?
No, typically I'm a signer, Tim's a signer, the mayor's a signer, and then Teresa Martin at the bank is a signer.
Okay.
She's the treasurer.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand.
This is a
Roll call.
Oh, sorry, roll call, go ahead.
Yes. I approve.
Any?
Yes.
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 Okay. Record show is approved by roll call 4-0. Public concerns at this time or comments? Anybody? It's Jenna Williams here. Uh,
Where would you like me?
Well, where would be most comfortable for you?
I can, since I speak so softly, I might stand, and I did bring copies of my presentation.
Sure.
Those around.
Another one.
Yeah, those are fine. So, yes, I'm Jana Williams from the Flint Hills Regional Council, and thank you for having me this evening. I wanted
Welcome.
to come and give you a brief update on our grants and services that we've been working on and what's coming up for 2022. Your first slide. Your first slide is just showing our membership. We have 24 member jurisdictions and showing who are your board representatives from Muncie County. And then our next slide, I was talking about the grants that we have going currently, or that we had in 2021. We had our EDA planning partnership, our EDA CARES funding, our EPA Brownfield Coalition grant, which we just closed out at the end of December. And then we have just applied for another EPA Brownfield assessment grant. We have EPA technical assistance grants, and then we also have EPA bipartisan funding, which has just come out, which will be going for the next probably 4 to 5 years. And so I just want to name those because it can get a little confusing. We have a lot of grant acronyms, and so those are the main 6 ones that we have, and then I'll briefly go into a little detail on each one of them. So the EDA Planning Partnership, we just finished our, we call it our CEDS. It's our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the entire region. It's available on our website. And at this point, that's the update. We'll be doing the implementation. That's ongoing, and we've been working with Jim McGregor on that. He's been part of that committee. We also provide technical assistance through that grant writing, and help to identify the needs of businesses for recovery and resiliency and provide business and talent support. The EDA CARES funding is additional money we got when COVID occurred in June of 2020. And with that, we have recovery and resiliency grant writing. We've done several grants. We did a travel and tourism grant in Riley County. We also did one for Mount Mitchell Prairie Preserve. We did a Build Back Better grant application and looking at doing a good jobs challenge, which is due in February of this year. And then we did 2 HEAL grants for St. George for 2 properties that they had on their main street there. Our EDA CARES grant, some of the we did the needs assessment system because all of our members have a to record those and keep track of them and be able to work on them. So we've just gotten this software system that Justin has been trying to get on and upload a lot of your grant needs. And then also we have software on the right, you'll see that graphic that shows the 4 modules of this regional workforce needs software that we have. And the next slide kind of goes into a lot of detail about what that is. So there's 4 modules. One is called Skillfit, and that's really for any individual who wants to go on and work on their resume or job search, and perhaps they want to try a different career path or a different job, and it can show them their gap and where they can get training and to move on, possibly to upskill and become more competitive in their job market. We also have this labor and economic data developer module that they're currently working on now, and also an economic impact study, and then skills gap analysis. So those are some of the other projects that we have funded through that EDA CARES grant money. So some of the things that touched Wabunsee County was the EPA Brownfield Coalition grant that we just closed. We did do a business impact quote and provided a phase 1 environmental assessment, and that had a value of $5,500. It didn't identify any problems, so that property owner had no need to go further and do a phase 2 or anything like that. So that brings us to what we're looking at for 2022. Potentially, we have 2 EPA grants coming up that we can offer you. We'll continue with EDA CARES grant writing, EDA Planning Partnership, which is the SEDS, and then any grant writing that needs that you identify for Eskridge. And then also we're looking at that Good Jobs Challenge for 2022. And one of the projects that I work on is the EPA Brownfield grant. As I mentioned, we just closed out one. We also submitted for another one on December 1st, and this one will be for $500,000. We realized with the last one that we could do it a whole lot quicker than 3 years, so we decided to do this one in 1.5 years because we know we can with our consultant. There is no match with this grant, so if this is an assessment grant, which looks at phase 1s, phase 2s, removing tanks from the ground, and this is all no match, it's free. We also do area plans with this, which we completed one in Junction City and one in Manhattan, and I've included the websites at the bottom of that page that you can go to and see what that looks like to do an area plan, the process that they go through, and what you end up with at the end of the project. So also last summer, we did come and tour the city a little bit with our consultant Stantec, who we have hired again to work with us on this upcoming grant. We've also talked. We went to Paxico and Alta Vista, but we really wanted to focus on Eskridge, and we think you have included it in the grant. And so if the community is interested, it's there, hopefully. It also your Wabunsee County Economic Director is going to be on our technical advisory committee for that grant. And then on the right-hand side, I can show you that the value of these services. So a phase 1, which basically just identifies the historic use, is about $5,000. A phase 2 is where they actually do site sampling. If the phase 1 would show that you need to go further, maybe there's potential contamination, you do a phase 2. And for a small site, that's valued at $15,000. A large one is $25,000. For some of the downtown buildings, sometimes you want to look at asbestos or hazardous building survey. That's valued at $3,250. Tank removals are 25,000 apiece. So if you have any underground storage tanks that you know of that could be removed, that's part of this grant. And then the area wide plans, which I mentioned, are valued about 50 to 60,000 apiece. That's probably not a year. It can be a year process that the consultant will go through with the community to look at the use of perhaps a corridor like your Main Street. That's what they did in the city of Junction City. The other thing that they provide is technical assistance grants, which we are doing with Potawatomi County right now, and that we're looking at their courthouse. This is also a free service where they look at adaptive reuse for historic buildings, such as your schools. I believe you have 2 school buildings that we also went and looked at with our consultant. So we did apply for that $500,000 grant, and literally the very next day, they announced their $1.5 billion. So they told us not to withdraw that application, but this is the bipartisan infrastructure funding, and that should be available for 5 years. Before this, there was some match to cleanup and multi-purpose grants. With this funding, there is no match to cleanup, and so that's a real benefit to property owners, because they always said to us, we know we have an issue, we want to clean it up, but where's the money? Here's the money. There's no match.
Can I ask you a question then?
Sure.
Are the property owners limited to a maximum amount that they can get for cleanup?
Well, that is the beauty of this funding, is this can be cleanup can be up to $5 million per grant. So multi-purpose and cleanup grants are for the owner. We cannot apply for it because we don't own the property.
Right.
But so these are for up to, millions of dollars for really large cleanup projects. We can apply for assessment grants, which we did, but for the other one, but we can apply for it again. They are looking at offering this in July and again in fall. So once they announce this, I met with our EPA Region 7 people and said, to try to find out more information on this. And they said, tell everybody to think big, have a plan. And these are the grants they're offering. So they also have a revolving loan fund, which we would like to do someday, but we're not quite yet. And then at the bottom is that technical assistance grant. So the other thing that they said because people are not ready to just jump in and do this. What they are offering though right now for a site such as your school building is they're offering free phase 1s, phase 2s, and lead and asbestos surveys and structural studies. So if you were to take a building like that, you could have all that done for free right now, and that would get them ready to do a cleanup grant or a multi-purpose grant. So that's something that we can help you get.
Does that put the owner under any obligation for further work, or is it just an assessment and here you go, here's the condition of your building, you get a report out of it?
I would say the phase 1 does not put you under any obligation. A structural study does not. Once you do phase 2 and they identify and they're testing, then it becomes public knowledge that if there is a contamination.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you are getting a cleanup plan. The goal is to do a cleanup plan so that you can go ahead and get a cleanup grant and take care of it.
It would be the owner's responsibility to go after that grant themselves. That wouldn't be facilitated through you guys.
We can help you with that because we have the consultant and we've been working on the grants before, so we can help you with that we can administer it. But then they would be the actual applicant, the owners. So it's exciting. If you need those grants, it's kind of an exciting time. So that in a nutshell is the grants. And then those last few pages are the dues information for this year. They did decide, the board voted on a dues increase. We like to think that, you know, there is value with the regional council. But that shows what the dues were, what they're gonna be, and then how they, and then some of our other accomplishments that I won't go into detail in the last year. So, having said all that, what can the regional council do for Eskridge?
Well, definitely like you're no match, but you said that. But at one point you said think big, which I think we can do. But then you said right after that have a plan, and that's part of our, I think our weakness is we really don't have a plan to go after. And I mentioned in the council meetings before that we need to have a 5-year outlook and have a good idea of what projects we want to go for, about when we want to do it, but be able to have the flexibility that if this grant is hey, it's normally a 1 to 2 match grant and now it's a 1 to 10 match grant, we can pull that forward from another year and try to take advantage of that. So just to be able to have that someone on our side, so to speak, that we can kind of trust on autopilot to look out for our needs and to help us get some kind of documentation that says this is what we want to do. That I see that as some of our biggest needs. But as for the cleanup, I mean, in my mind immediately goes to the old store building across the street that the city owns and has no business owning, but that's neither here nor there. They accepted that deal, but it's just become dilapidated. And I guess my question for that would be, I know we're talking about cleaning up. I mean, does that take the form of rehabilitating a building into the same use as it was prior, or can we make a green space out of it, or can we make some kind of a patio area, or where turn it into some other kind of functional use? I just don't know. I mean, it'd be cool if we could preserve the facade of the building. I don't know if that's really even possible. Maybe it could be, but just that building has structural issues. It needs to come down in a responsible way that's not going to harm the buildings next to it. I mean, I think the city has kind of wrapped its mind around that needs to happen. We just going to require some money, and of course the matching and everything is definitely going to be helpful in that regard. So that's one of the things. And I don't know, I sent a list of projects to you, and yeah, full disclosure, I'd sent her a list of like 14 things we kind of had talked about before. I talked with Mike and asked what his ideas were, but right before the new year, Dolly got sent a request to put these in. So she was just outgoing. So she said, here, will you do this? And so I tried to do that. And like you said, the system was down. So I just kind of, I already had something started as kind of just notes to myself. So I just kind of expanded upon the project, everything. But I attempted to rank them, but it's only my opinion. It's definitely in draft status, but it would give us some, basis of talking about things. But I can pass them around if you guys care about them at all. But that's let's see. I was curious. Cdbg Grants. I know that's been a big thing for us before. How successful are you guys in applying for those and receiving funding? And that's.
I have not done one.
Okay.
I have been a part of a LMI survey or observed an LMI survey. I am not that grant writer.
Okay.
But,
okay. But is there somebody else at FHRC that does those kind of grants, or is that?
We are in the process. We have one, and now we're going to be hiring a person. So that's my next task tomorrow.
All right. Is that the
I
outgoing?
basically do the EPA and then the Department of Defense with Fort Riley. So.
Okay. Very good.
But I would say back on talking about your long range vision, the EPA grant, looking at doing an area plan is basically maybe looking at, we had looked at Main Street doing a corridor study, and that might be something you'd be interested in.
Okay.
Doing that, because you could look at that site that you want to potentially demolish, and just look at the whole corridor and sort of make a plan for how you'd like that to look and become.
Yeah. Okay.
Are these monies just for demolishing and cleaning up, or do they also allow for reconstruction?
And we don't know about demolition. In the past, demolition has not been allowed with EPA grants, but we do not have the final guidelines, so I don't know about demolition. It is for assessment and planning. The one that we're applying for, that $500,000, and then the next one is to do cleanup, the actual cleanup. So then it would be something else that would take you into reconstruction. If that was
Well, where I'm going with this is we own the lake. It's our water supply. We have a campsite out there, beach, bait house. All of that's in very, very poor shape. And it needs a lot.
Mhm.
It needs a lot. For starters, we need a wall to retain the beach. It's eroding away and washing away, and making it dangerous, where the bait house is. And I don't know what the guidelines are. Would that fall into this category somehow? Or-
is it potential contamination?
I'll talk to you later. Yes, there is.
There is.
Yes.
Then depending on
It's our
that,
water supply.
then
Mhm.
yeah, potentially is. And the other thing too is our consultant is quite willing to come in and speak with you about what might be possible or how you might want to proceed with this and talk about specifics like that. He's the expert. He's the environmental consultant, so I don't. They were here this summer and they got very excited about Westbridge, so they'd like to come back. And then also there's the technical assistance too that you might want to take a look at. The EPA Region 7 is offering. Sorry?
I would like to speak to this person.
Okay.
Which prompts my question, who the contact is and how do we contact them? I was kind of flipping through here, but I didn't see
To talk to Region 7 or to talk to our consultant?
to talk to the consultant, perhaps to talk to you, information for grants and things of this nature, get the ball rolling.
Okay, I have business cards if they're.
May I have one,
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Does anybody else want one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've got our information.
Personally, I think that changes the ballgame totally from what's been going on around here for years. And that we now, in my opinion, have a greater flexibility to get somebody in here, for example, for the IGA store, if they're knowing that their grant can be obtained and the environmental problems that has over there can be cleaned up at no cost to the owner.
Someone else need to call.
Thank you. Which is good.
Yeah.
I think that's held the city, not the city back, but it's held people back from buying property around here because of the expense of getting it cleaned up. And this certainly changes everything. Anybody else have any questions for Jana?
And that goes with anybody that owns a building
Or
on
anything,
Main
yeah.
Street. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Sure.
this is gonna be a great opportunity for them potentially to look at some of this stuff and.
Jana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information.
Yes.
And do we need a motion to pay our dues for this year, probably? Okay, I so move.
I say,
We have a motion to pay the dues and a second. Any discussion? Everybody knows what it costs. No further discussion?
No.
Okay, then we need to vote on it. Show of hands, right hand, left hand, both hands. Get counted twice if you use both hands. Okay, I think they all raised. Did you guys do that?
Yeah, we,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Motion passes 4-0.
That's what's getting me on this chart here, where they say population change from 2010 to 2020. We've got everybody's population change, and we lost 95 people in 10 years. That's crazy.
Well, there's
We're gonna work on changing that eventually.
nowhere for him to live, for one.
All right, let's move on. Move on to the department reports. Mike Bone, Utility Superintendent.
At the request of the mayor, I will stand there. Just a couple things to touch on, more major, I wouldn't say issues. Start with the water plant. We've been dealing with an aging plant. I mean, that's been ongoing for quite some time. Most recent is we've had a motor failure on the west settling basin sweep assembly. The shaft is frozen into the gear reduction assembly. We worked a good portion of the day trying to get that out to troubleshoot why everything happened. Will not come out. Doped it down with penetrating oil, let her set overnight. Tomorrow it gets torched, some heat, bigger pry bars, hammer, something. Alexander's does have our replacement gear reduction, which was used about 1.5 years ago. In for a rebuild. I'm not sure on the status of that. This one has failed quite a bit sooner than you think it should have. We don't know the reason once again on that. Circle backer, I'd mentioned a couple months ago about putting it in your head about new plant, new design, possible new location, having a study done for our current water needs, our future water needs, what the best way to approach this. I've looked at some engineers. I think it might be time to maybe reach out and request some information on what their capabilities are, what projects they've done, just to kind of get a process of them to approach us and see who maybe we would want to start that ball rolling. And then, of course, look into funding and cash monies on hand we have to start that, and any studies or anything we may want to do. We're getting by with what we have. It's operational. It's year to year. It's taking more TLC, more labor to just keep a really, really close eye on things to make sure we remain compliant. Thus far, we've always remained compliant. The very end, it does try to turn around and cooperate with us when things look really bad, and it's always done that, but eventually that won't be the case, and we'll be dealing with other state agencies and possible violations and compliance issues. But I'll still get some more information, get to all you guys on that type of thing, and see how you want to proceed with those. Over to the gas side, end of year maintenance and surveys. I've been working on those. Leak surveys went well. No underground leaks were found. Our Reagan regulator and relief valve inspection, which was done by USDI, which they do every year, we contract that out to have someone else's name. I witness it all and I do it with them. Nobody goes in our reg stations without a city employee with it, just to make sure everything, all valves are where they need to be. That'd be a really bad deal. We did have one regulator fail on the Allentown border station. It's a double run set. Basically, we have 2 regulators. One is the worker, one's the monitor. If gas supply takes the worker down to a set pressure, the monitor would kick in, and then they would both run. Rarely does that happen. It's very overbuilt. The reg that failed is offline, so we're just working on one regulator at this point. If that regulator were to have failed, it failed to lock up. Basically, when a certain pressure is reached, the regulator did not completely shut off and it trickled pressure higher. When there's constant usage on it, it's usually not an issue. Now, if it were to fail completely and go wide open, before we knew about it, we are protected by a full capacity relief valve as well, which once a certain pressure was hit, the relief would pop off and it would take the full capacity that regulator could supply. It would not have caused an overpressure situation in town.
Kind of alarm when that happens?
Nope.
Just,
There's a house right there, and I'm sure they'd be calling me. But when it starts blowing gas at about 60 psi out the top of this little building.
Yeah.
But yeah. Once again, even in an overpressure situation, we had a regulator fail in Eskridge years ago. Our incoming pressure from Southern Star has been lowered below. It used to be 66 psi, which about 64, which our maximum allowable pressure is 66. It's our highest MAOP on any line. In the towns, it's 30 psi. Our service regulators at the houses will take up to 60 psi. Back then, we had Southern Star lower our incoming pressure down to about 54, 57 psi. So even if we had major failure, everything, we're not going to overpressure a house. We will overpressure the towns above the maximum allowable operating pressure, but we kind of built that redundancy into what we get from Southern Stars. So waiting on a rebuild kit or reply to when and if I can get a rebuild kit for that regulator, we'll rebuild it or replace it and be back online the way we should be down there. On the sewer project, Kramer's have sent me an email. They have a few things to finalize, double check, some locates that may have got mixed up or something when they were doing their survey in town. Now they have a few manholes they weren't able to find and pop the top on their own, so they can do their reports on those. Trying to schedule a time in the next couple of weeks to meet up with them actually on site, go around with them, and knock all that stuff out, and hopefully we'll have some stuff on paper here really shortly on that project. So keep the ball rolling on that. Questions?
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Stephanie, you're up. Please.
So finishing on getting everything, all of our year-end reports and all the work wrapped up for the year. Barney and Associates will be here at the end of January to perform our audit. And then everybody has a treasurer's report, your financial sheet. So I think that is it. If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay. Annie?
I don't have anything today.
Okay.
We meet on the 18th, and then we'll have something to talk about probably in February then. So.
Sally Davis, you stand forward, please.
Oh, I'm working on it.
Can you
All the way up
all the
there.
way? I want people at home to see who's talking, and I want the audience to see who's talking as well.
I don't have a whole lot. The dog I had out back here, I did find a home for it. He's out on a farm running free as can be, happy as can be. I'm got a couple things I'm checking on, some chickens that possibly are over limited. I haven't been able to catch them at home yet. So
The chickens?
yeah, the chickens keep running on me. And I think that's about it.
Did you ever get with the Wabunsee County to resolve the issue of who handles the dogs when they're outside the city?
There was a kind of a mix-up.
Has that been resolved?
Yes.
And let us know what the resolution was, please.
One person gave out my name. They didn't let some people know that they took this dog in. They just automatically knew it was this area, knew that I was animal control down here, and just told them to call me. And so we kind of had a little discussion about it.
And so we should not be expecting calls outside the
No,
city.
only in case there's an emergency
Okay.
or their kennels are full. They might call me for backup. But
But
otherwise,
they'll call you, not just random people outside city limits, right?
right. Yes. If I get a call from outside of city limits, they have to call the sheriff.
Okay.
They can't go through me. And that, unless if it's a vicious dog, then yeah, since I'll probably be the first one that can get there,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll be on their way.
Okay.
To assist. And just kind of, yeah. So that's how that's worked out.
Have we heard any more about that person that was supposed to trap the beaver?
No, I haven't got a hold of him yet. Has he called you back?
No,
Okay.
you just called.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't got a hold of him yet.
Okay.
I would like it if you would
Yes.
tomorrow.
Well, last week was kind of a bad week. Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's
Thank you.
it.
Thank you, Sally. Reviewing purchase request and work orders.
You have one there. This one actually got over to me last year. I had mentioned some things, and one of the mowers was on there, and that's what you have in front of you now. This would be to trade in the town mower. It is the one that needs to go first. Put it that way, I would say. That's what it is. It's basically the exact same thing that we have, only it does have a slightly larger Kawasaki motor on it. They're allowing us $4,200 for our mower for a total cost of $56.44. And that was my suggested breakdown on usage for that mower.
Oh, what we've been running, Laser? That okay.
The X-Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, for these will be 4 or 5 now. We were out of warranty this last summer.
Okay.
So we ran both of them, I believe. And then this one, because when we did the last 2 Skags, we did 2 mowers all at once. And we wanted to get back to that alternating so we're not taking the hit. So we'd run the lake mower 1 more year. Next year, I would ask for one to replace that. And then basically we would go 2 to 3 years in between the next one, then but kind of on a rotation. So we're not doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned that this was brought up last year at some point and for discussion during the budget. Was it discussed during the budget and put in the budget for 2022? Does anybody know? I'll be reviewing the budget, but I haven't had a chance to look at that yet, but
It's not a line item budget. It was just budget items I was talking about in each of the different funds when we were talking about authority and what we had and what we we're going to have and our potential.
I understand that, but we still have to plan for things that's going to happen in the future. And that includes putting it in a budget. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I'm just saying that we need to be thinking coming from and start getting it set aside. So when these things come up, we've got money prepared to buy items and not hoping we have enough money left over somewhere to cover it. So just something to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I know the form that the county always uses, or I guess the state, with that spreadsheet that we see every year in the budget. I mean, I think they tend to overgeneralize the categories, and that's maybe some of the fallacy of that is, hey, we have a budget because it's right here. So why have another budget that's more detailed? I don't know if that's some of I don't know, my opinion of.
I can understand that thought, but we're talking a small valued item at this point anyway.
Yeah.
But I do recall that there was a new truck purchase here recently, and that was not something that was in a budget set up to buy. So that's a major expense that we need to look at. But I think we need to look at all the expenses, and if we're going to have a general fund to cover expenses throughout the year, we should allocate so much money for those smaller items that's coming out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
don't disagree with you. Yeah, I think I think it would be nice to have a document that says we plan on spending this every year. Maybe one could be developed just based on
sure.
past history. And
Now, how long is this quote good for, Mike?
Oh,
You don't know.
a while. Yeah, I mean, he just needs to let his suppliers know. Like last year, last year they had a lot of trouble getting equipment. They're getting all their equipment locked down right now.
Now, I don't have anything against Schwant Tractor. They are located roughly 15 miles from here. And of course, the idea is to do business locally as much as possible. Are they the only ones within a 15 or 20 mile radius that we can refer to for something like this?
This equipment, yes, they're the only X-Mark dealer. We just try to keep, once we find something that works, that's what we've done, is keep with that product and the quality of product. So yes.
All right. Anybody else? Comments?
it used to be a lot more attractive with the pricing on the. It seemed like the trade-in almost covered the price of the new one that we were buying because of that government program. I kind of take it that that's not a thing anymore. That's not as attractive as a discount, or is that?
No, we still had to cover, the usage. We had to buy the mower at one point in time, but yeah, it wasn't like a free mower.
Yeah, I know that, but it just seemed like there was a lot less of a gap between the purchase price and the
and depending
trade
on that,
in.
now that's not a bad price that they quoted you on that. I have a feeling there's some municipality incentives in there. I bought a new one for myself last year from them, and that price is more attractive than what I got.
Any further discussion? New city business. I'm sorry.
Are we
Go
gonna
ahead.
act on this or?
Well, nobody say anything.
Okay, I'm gonna move to approve the purchase and trade into the old mower. Net of 5644 to be split. As Mike says, here 50% general, 30% sewer, 20% water.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the town mower that's been presented to us, and we have a second. Any discussion on that? Show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? Let the record show that it was approved 4-0. A new city business, EMS update.
That would be me.
Come on in.
How's it going, folks? Most of you know me. I'm John Taylor. I'm your Fire District number 5 chief. Being chief of Fire District 5 means I think I missed a meeting, and they elected me when I missed that meeting. So I'm kind of making my rounds now. We got a new EMS contract last fall with the county and AMR. Really, the fire department and the ambulance service is 2 different entities. AMR is a private company, obviously, and the county contracts our medical service down here. History, 10 years ago-ish, we lost our ambulance. Probably more than that now, actually. I don't know. It goes by pretty fast. Eskridge used to have an ambulance. Fire department owned the land that the building was on. They took our ambulance years and years and years ago. We, for 5 years, hired a really good attorney sitting next to you. And we've been doing research and trying to figure out ways to get an ambulance back to our city. Response times, everything. So long story short, they did approve a contract the middle of December-ish that got us a full-time ambulance in the barn. We also got grant money, thank you, COVID, to remodel the barn. So we're in the process. We got the living quarters done, and it's a 2-bedroom apartment now and has kitchen. It's really nice. The spray will be added onto the bay, onto the ambulance barn, so we can put two vehicles in there for future deal. Because we're just like anybody else. If you're going to give us grant money, we're going to overbuild it if it's free money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're adding on to the building. And then the building was actually scheduled to get painted anyways. The fire department actually owns the building now because AMR went and nagged on their contract. So the county gave us back the building years ago, and so now they're having to lease it back from the fire department. We gave them a pretty good deal. Well, what the contract ended up saying, I don't think we got it back yet.
$1 for 5 years.
It's pretty reasonable deal. So
The ambulance is worth more than that.
And we actually, the fire board has decided to. We're trying to do everything we can to make this ambulance deal down here work. So we're actually paying the utilities on the building because we were already paying the utilities on the building last few years. So it's just for everybody's best interest to get an ambulance here because it is government working for you new people. You know, it will be most of the time a ALS ambulance, which means assisted life support. There's 2 different levels, basically. A BLS is basic life support, and the difference is if you got a cut, bruise, break, bone broken, potentially die on the way to the barn, BLS will transport you. ALS means heart attack, stroke, et cetera, the bad stuff. Through all this, the county decided to make a medical board that advises the county commissioners. So it's an independent board that advises the county commissioners on EMS. And I'm going to try to get this really fast. And if you guys got questions, you guys can ask them. But basically, the EMS board really fought for us to get ALS. Now, the downside, we need drivers. They did not decide to raise your taxes. If you notice, your taxes went up a smidge on the ambulances this year. And it looks worse than what it is, but that's actually the whole county. So you get, even if people in Paxico are helping to pay for your ambulance down here. It says District 2 for the ambulance, but that district is like 98% of the county. It's the easiest way to explain it. Alta Vista is District 1. So what the fire department is tasked doing, we are now in the medical business, unfortunately. We got to have somewhat a volunteer system to drive the ambulance. It's a 40-hour course. It sounds like it's going to be broke up, maybe like 5 Fridays, 4 Fridays, somewhere or Saturdays, one or the other. We do have one person on our fire department that already qualifies for them that's showing interest. There will be some pay, but our board meeting ain't till Thursday. And so we haven't locked down the pay. It's not going to be 100% volunteer, but if you live within a reasonable amount of time from the city and our response time for our district, you could actually stay at home and be able to go to it. So I guess more or less, I'm kind of on a PR tour right now, kind of getting everybody caught up on what's going on. It's overall, it's really good news. We're going to run it like this for a year or two, see where it goes. The other good news is staffed by one of their employees all the time. Even if we fail on our end and can't get it staffed for that day or that call, there will be an ambulance showing up at the medical sooner than the Alma ambulance.
It may not be a transporting.
May not be a transporting, but they can start what we call packaging and getting you. And there'll be a paramedic-ish, so they'll be able to start some lines and stuff, and some of the time-consuming part, because that's the other problem we have is when they get down here, if they start from scratch, 10 or 15 minutes, like they're going to do surgery, and we just want to put them in the ambulance and start driving because it's a drive. So that's about it. I just kind of we're going to probably, after our meeting, we'll start putting flyers up and stuff. If you know anybody that's interested in making a little extra money, wants to volunteer and doesn't necessarily want to go to fires and stuff like that, we're going to have an EMS side for a while here, it looks like. And if it don't work, then we'll probably have to go back to the county commissioners, ask for more money, and try to go for 2 full-time positions here in town. But for us to get an ambulance back, you probably could ask Todd. He's kind of quiet right now, but it's been a fight, and it's been a long fight, and it was nasty at one point in time. But we weathered the storm, and we're pretty happy where we're at. We got a really good board over the fire department right now. It's just been a long haul. Questions, problems, complaints?
John, what type of training does your driver need to have?
I've asked 3 times now what their corporate's gonna. I know their corporates. I know they gotta have policy on what they want to drive their ambulance, and they have not answered me. They told me 18 years old. Well, I'm gonna go. Probably you're gonna have to be 18. Probably gonna have to have a driver's license. I'm gonna assume you're probably not gonna be able to have felonies. Probably, yeah. Basically, if you're driving it, you're gonna have to be in some kind of shape to help pick up the patient. You'll still be loading the patient, and basically you'll show up and help them package the patient, load them up, and get them going. It's actually really easy. It just sounds horrible when you try to explain it to somebody.
The course they're going to require is an EMR course, so it'll be like basic first aid. You're a basic first responder, and then an AMR course, which is the defensive driving and everything to drive an AMR vehicle. So
It's like it was before. That's what they required before, so that's good. It's not hard to do it.
There'll be like one small state test is what they're telling me. I've spoken with LWID. They're kind of interested maybe if we have to sponsor some people, which the city's done it in the past and LWID's done it in the past. And I think we end up with one person. Well, this is a totally different deal this time. We actually have the ambulance before I'm asking you to sponsor anything. Right now, I'm not asking for anything, just besides I wanted to tell you what was going on. So hopefully we don't need no more money, and maybe we can rob some COVID money somewhere else.
So you said we're going to get one full-time?
We're going to have one full-time AMR employee all the time.
In the station?
Either in the station or they got to live within 5 minutes. Like Carl Williams would still qualify. Mm-hmm. He's kind of interested. He's already working up in Alma some on his time off. and honestly, if you're a person, if you or you're want to start a new career or whatever, it would be a fantastic job because our call log ain't huge, but I don't know, we ran 3 in the last week.
We still need it regardless of
At least 4, possibly 5 that ambulance would have responded to if it
Yeah.
was here January 1.
and the salary for that employee is coming out of the grant.
The salary is actually coming out of your taxes. That's why your taxes went up on ambulance number 2.
That's through AMR. That's not through the fire district. That's through the
not
county.
through the fire district, but we
I
sure
noticed it went up.
we
on
sure
ours.
take the hits for it.
I noticed it went up on ours, but I thought the number was so small. How could it
Yeah.
do anything?
Yeah, you would think we could have just raised it a smidge more and had 2 employees. I wouldn't have to go
Easily.
recruiting. But hey, it's government work, so we don't do simple stuff.
I don't know about everybody else, but our taxes actually went down almost 3%.
Well, maybe we ought to raise it 3%.
But I'm just saying they could have raised on us anyway. They could have raised the
Yeah,
MSP a little.
This
I'll give
contract,
you an extra quarter.
this contract is a substantial increase, dollar for dollar, to what the county was paying AMR before, and the Emergency Services Board is going to have to keep an eye on this and make sure what's supposed to happen is happening, because they've got scheduled increases year after year after year up to 5 years. So
there's some accountability that the MS board is going to be charged with now, which has never been done before, and that was one of our complaints. And then what we basically hired Todd for was to do research for us, and we were doing Open Records Act, and they were not playing well with others and didn't want to give it to us, but we were trying to figure out where our resources were going. Meaning we wanted calls for about 2 years, and we want to know what the calls were, where the addresses were, and all that, so we could say, all right, Alma had this many calls and that stuff. My argument was, if we took interstate out of this equation, how many more calls does North County have over us? And I think we're all probably about the same if you took it interstate. So this is where we're at right now. It's honestly, it's probably one of the best things that's happened in emergency services down here in a long time. I actually sat where Mike was, and I heard the AMR guy say, well, when they pulled the ambulance, it was a real big deal. And he came to the meeting and said, well, if you in the city took the city's money to put on a class and never brought an ambulance back, and he goes, I've never seen a town ambulance back after it's been taken away. So we're kind of defying gravity here, if you will.
Sure. Kind of like the post office.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. And
they
hard to
say,
get it back.
if you bring more people back and all that, and it doesn't happen, well, this actually happened this time.
So do we have an expectation on what date that we're going to start seeing somebody down here?
It was supposed to be January 1, and they're have not done it yet. So that's going to come up at our board meeting. Kind of wish you would have asked that one.
board,
But
I said
hey.
emergency services before. It's actually the ambulance board. That is a separate board at the county. They're working on that. They've been in contact with the regional director of AMR, and they are awaiting some answers. So they are aware that things are ready to go, and our end of the deal's been held up, and the building is absolutely 100% ready for it.
So are you open to the public Thursday? for
Yeah,
this
we're
meeting?
always open.
What time is that meeting?
Or that it's changed so many times over the years. It starts
Board
at
meeting
6
at
now.
6.
What time again? 6 o'clock. Okay.
Now, is this driver that you need is like just on call?
And if I get enough people, we'll just do maybe 12-hour shifts at first here. Is kind of my thought. I got to get some of this approved by my board.
See, the EMRs will actually be on the fire department. They'll be a volunteer. We're trying to figure out how we can pay a very small stipend for an on-call.
Yeah.
You know, just that way we can schedule someone, because you really can't schedule a 100% volunteer. So we'll have a little bit of a stipend. Then if you get called in to actually run a call and you do a transport, then there will be a chunk, a flat fee that will be given to you for running that transport with an AMR employee.
Okay.
Is the structure, the basic structure.
That come from AMR or the county?
That will come from AMR.
Okay.
Mike, that's what they did. They gave us $8 an hour, but we were on call, like you say, and AMR would give us $8.
Yeah, that's a little bit different than what they're doing now.
I hope so.
You're an AMR employee.
Well, I used to work like an on-call juvenile intake center, and they paid like a flat $10 or $20 a shift. And then when he went on to actually work, he got paid for that.
Right. This would be similar to that.
So that's probably, yeah.
We have to watch, the fire department has to watch their budget too, because we don't have a whole lot to
Yeah.
work with as far as paying this extra wage,
Oh, yeah.
so to speak, out, so.
If we would have known, we would have budgeted for it and requested more money this year. I mean, it's just, this year's gonna be a struggle. It's gonna be an exciting,
Well, we
stressful
won't
year.
come ask you for donations this year.
Yeah, that's exactly what they told me. They were getting to, they're like, easy on the donations.
Yeah, I'll stay clear now.
Donate your time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think this was awesome.
It's
It burned when they took it away from us. I mean,
it was awful.
This kind of came up around 4th of July, and I talked to Tim a little bit about it this fall. It just kept transpiring and getting better and better with the COVID money. And at one point in time, they were going to build a brand new facility, but they wanted to do it at Lake Wabunsee. And then, so Tim and I were trying to negotiate where we could possibly put a building out there, maybe by the fire station, but they nagged on that. That was going to be a pretty expensive venture, and they didn't have enough money under COVID to cover all that. Yeah, it was pretty redundant when we had a building here that we could. I don't think they believed us that we could transform it to what it was. They need to trust rednecks. I don't know. Give enough guys 30-pack of beer and cigarettes, they can build anything. They might not have all their fingers when they're done, but they can build anything. And it's an ambulance barn, so it's just making business when they chop their fingers off. So. Very good. Well, I'm going to roll out if you guys don't have any more questions. Any questions from the
Thank you.
public? All right, I'm
Thank you
gone.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Other continuing council business. First up is 325 West Flint Hills Drive, docks and structure transfer. Is this one left over from 2 weeks ago's meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been on the last
From
2
4 weeks
meetings,
ago.
and
Okay.
I think it was just an oversight at the last meeting, from what I believe.
Well, let's get it
We didn't
resolved.
have you here keeping us on track.
I think she was here, it just got sidetracked and
I
missed out.
wasn't.
I mean, last 2 weeks ago, weren't you here 2 weeks ago? You weren't? Okay, my bad.
That's how it got fell through the cracks.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I moved to approve the transfer. We do have the list of the structures, right?
Yes.
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 So
Yep.
they're aware that there's two
Yes.
structures.
Yes.
As well as 2 dogs.
They're actually here, so they do know. I've talked several times about it, so they do know that there's 2 structures and the docks, 2 docks. And he did tell me you guys are maybe in the future moving the one structure out.
Yeah, it looks like a.
The
we
flower
thought it
pot.
was a planning pot, but it looks like it's a fire pit instead, so.
Yeah,
We're
you
not
go
sure
either
whether
way.
or not.
I want to be clear. I want you to understand that we're counting the patio it's on as well as that. I thought it was a fire ring, but whatever. I mean, there was discussion of counting it as 3 structures, but if you get rid of that fire ring, it's still going to be 2 structures. Because that concrete is classified as a structure as well.
Okay. Has that been that way for a number of years? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a patio or whatever. That's how we do that. So you got the patio plus you have something on it, which we just call that one. Isn't that what we talked about?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were talking about 1 and 2 on.
Number 2 is the building,
Okay.
the shed.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering where you're going with that, but yeah. Okay.
We have a motion on the floor. Did I hear a second?
Yeah, I did quietly,
Okay.
but yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay. Okay, now we can discuss it.
I think we're done discussing it.
Yeah, that's why I was looking for that second, because the second should come before the discussions,
I
guys.
think it did.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion on this motion? All in favor? Those opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Pre-wind apartments.
You want me to come forward?
It would be nice if you would, Dolly. If
You wanna
you-
sit
I'll sit over there.
Here, I'll move, Dolly.
Thanks.
I think it's important that,
No, it's a good idea. I just have to be careful where I go
yeah, I understand.
or how I go.
But it was nice enough to leave you.
Low hanging chair here. All right, on the next step with the building, it was declared we had the engineer out and he had two things to look at, whether it was repairable or where it needed to be taken down. And he determined that it needed to be.
Are we talking about Prairie Wind?
Oh,
Prairie Wind.
this is what this is all about. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, tear it down. What are we talking about?
You just said Prairie Wind Apartments, so
Threw me
that's
for a
why.
loop.
Well, see, it was all connected for so long because I was going to sell Prairie
Gotcha.
Wind and try and get a profit so that we could put that towards the demolition of the building. If you'd like, I could talk about it the next meeting and we can
We'll put
just-
you on the agenda,
All right.
okay?
We don't need to talk about Prairie Wind. It's sold. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.
Yay.
Yeah.
Sold, done deal.
The only thing you need to consider now is my compensation.
Thank you very much, Dolly.
That's not going to do it. I worked on that thing for 7 years to get it sold. I worked with 3 managers. The best Connie Kemp was extremely helpful, getting all the documentations over and over and over again that I asked for. And so I would like a compensation, and I have an idea how much I want. I worked 7 years by myself with my managers, and I don't want. Would you like to know what I think I would like, or would you like to offer me something and I'll tell you what.
You weren't paid a salary the whole time?
No.
Okay, I'm just asking, clarifying.
No.
I don't know.
I never asked for a salary or anything because for the longest time, Prairie Wind wasn't making a lot of money. And our goal when we finally turned it to away from the lower income to a profit-making building, with each apartment, we would assess it. Connie and I would assess it, fix whatever was there, and just keep making it better and better and better for the optimal goal of selling it someday. And we did. So that's what you need to know about Prairie Wind.
Did you have a request? No
$1,000 a year for 7 years. I did it. Not $1,000 an hour or 6 hours or project or a flow sheet or any of that kind of stuff. 7 years of working with some people that were nice, some people that weren't nice, being threatened, which really didn't scare me at all, actually. I had a cane.
So you're asking the city council,
But I don't want it from the city. I can get that from the money that was paid for by the building.
well,
There was
that's
money
what I'm
left
saying,
over.
that
Either way, it's
Since-
the bottom line is reduced by $7,000. I mean, that's what it would be.
Yeah, because
I'm saying something a little different.
Yeah.
There's an
Okay.
entity involved in this is the limited partnership. Or the partnership that owns the building received. Now, there's only one general partner anymore, and that's the city, but it is an entity. And that entity would first be, I mean, if the request is made to the entity, it's a partnership for comp. That is appropriate, and then the partnership can make a request to the city to do that. And I think because of the positions.
Ourselves.
Well, yes, I understand that, but I'm concerned about the fact that we make sure we follow the procedures here. And if we have a claim that's a monetary claim against the city that isn't an existing contract, I think it has to be submitted via KSA 12105B, which is.
That's what happens when you get a lawyer involved.
Yeah. So that's probably, and whether that's from the partnership itself, whomever, I'm really not getting too technical about that, but I do think that statute needs to be complied with in the request. Just.
How do we go about dissolving the entity? Just, I don't know, somewhat related, but just curious.
Yeah, well, I think what you do, if we're clear that it doesn't own any property anymore, that you can, there's a document that you can just submit to the Secretary of State, which is the clerk could submit it, which would be a dissolution or a forfeiture of the corporate status, the partnership status, and that would be it.
Stephanie, didn't we already do that? Todd, I think we did that with the
Okay.
Secretary of State. When you say it, because I did send something to the Secretary of State.
Well, you
We
might have
can
made a
look in that
request. I mean, we did have to give evidence of the fact that there was an active partnership when you sold it because the title company wanted that,
Yeah, you're
which is
right.
appropriate. So I don't know. You can look it up. I can look it up on right now, as a matter of fact, if you give me a second. But in any case, that's a mere document, or if you just don't file an annual report when they ask for one, it will terminate within about 2 years.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, no, we took care of that. 'Cause
Well,
that was,
You sent
there
the,
was 3 different forms that we
yeah,
sent in,
you
and
sent
on
the
one of
annual reports, but I don't
you
remember
made-
ever sending anything.
well,
that
you
was
made
like
up
this.
for the fact that we had
Right.
the
Yeah,
fall
we
And it
did
was
that.
never sent.
but when I called in, I think we talked about that it was ending.
And see that I
We
don't
can
have.
sure check that out.
Yeah, I mean, the easy way to tell, I think, is if the proceeds were in the general fund. So, I mean, if you dissolved it, then the money has to go somewhere. I don't see them in the general fund.
I'm electing to,
But
yeah, but that would also, we're obligated because of how we were forgiven the loan from the state,
yeah,
that we were going to use that money towards taking that building down, and if there was any money left over, then donate, using it on Main Street for any buildings. And that was the letter that was sent to them. And then you guys received their answer and all that.
so there'd be some fund restrictions on that. But that's kind of what
Yeah,
we're
because
doing.
I would sit there and think that if you put that $100,000 in the general fund, it could be skittered away if we
Well,
didn't keep
yeah.
track of it.
what was the name of it? Just pre-review.
Is that a professional word, Skinner?
I understood it.
I figured you did.
Well, there's only like 60 entries of prairie winds. So
Lots of wind on the parade.
Dolly, I'm just a little curious. How come you weren't applying for compensation during the 7 years you were working on that?
Because we weren't making any money, and then I was doing it out of goodwill.
On
I've
goodwill,
never been paid for it. I've been on that for 20 years.
as you've been on it for
I
20
was
years.
on the
as-
board for several years,
board.
and yeah. And the board would get together whenever we had to make decisions. And probably the last, when Richard died, is when it came to me, and I was supposed to bring more people on board, and I didn't get them. I think Brett came to 3 meetings.
How many
It
people
was-
are on that board, can I ask?
Me, anybody, whoever was manager, and Brett.
Just
And
3
Brooke.
people? 4?
Brooke was from the MG.
a Nebraska organization that ran it based upon the setup, because it was
That was the Esther
Yeah.
Housing Authority.
the housing authority was federally subsidized, so it required an operator for all those years until the term of it was done. And that's what Brooke was from the Nebraska organization that did that ran it so that we were in compliance with the federal bonding that was required.
And if what would stop other board members from coming forward wanting compensation from the sale of this?
There wouldn't be anybody that could, because they didn't work with me.
Well, I'm just saying, you may not be aware that they were working behind the scenes doing other things. And so I'm just trying to cover our bases here. So when I have 4 people show up, hey, Dolly got paid, I want to get paid too.
Okay.
We'll just take a minute.
Yeah, we'll have to, I mean, we can't. And so, at this point, I think if there's a claim, it has to be submitted in the statutory method, so.
Yeah.
I mean, the corporation status is kind of beyond it.
There was a form that I have to fill out. Did you say?
Well, there's no form for it, it's a statute, it's KSA 12-105 little b.
Dolly, if you would like to come to the next meeting, we'd entertain your thoughts on the IGA and what's going on with that. I know you're prepared to talk about that tonight, but it's,
Well, I would also just like to ask, would we start putting some ads in the paper to garner interest and see if we get some bids on it?
on the IGA store.
Yeah, I'm taking it down.
Yeah, with what Jana Williams had to say earlier, I think it's going to make a big difference in what happens to get, and I think it will sell quickly. I mean, that's a good chunk of money right there to take care of the IGA building and the problems that it has. And that, I believe, has stopped a lot of people from getting it. I know at one time I was
There were
interested in
several
that
people.
building at one time, but
Well, you're talking rehabilitation. If
It's been
I'm not sure that
condemned.
that's possible.
It's been condemned. They said it has to come down.
We did have an engineer look at it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recommend different.
Which I mean is kind of,
It says it was to tear it down, but misunderstood.
yeah, we kind of knew internally anyway. I mean, it's,
Ooh, no, I
it's
don't
like
think
there wasn't
There'd be
any
a bit
salvage
massive
in it.
difference in
At this
cost.
point, you know, if we
No,
could
no,
have
no,
gone
I'm
back
just
in
saying.
time 10 years, then we probably could have done it.
I mean, I thought he was
I
going to
guess-
give
I
us a
guess
quote
the-
for both, but he was just giving us the. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Sorry.
I was talking to your wife.
Sorry.
she's available at home. No, it's okay. She was talking about we couldn't tear that building down with the grant money, as I understood that.
Yeah.
Now,
I would still try to spin it as it's a more productive use in that form, as a green space, as a patio space, as whatever you want to call it, outdoor paved area.
so I guess my
But
question,
Than what it is now.
my question really on that is, was it cheaper to tear it down than it was to get the mold and other issues taken care of? If that's the case, I can
There's no
understand
floor
where
in
the
it.
engineer was saying that it has to be torn down. I can understand that.
Do you have that?
Yeah, you'd be recreating the floor and
I mean,
all
he didn't
the
give us
structure and everything that's bad. I
But-
mean, I would guess that sure.
The
it's
biggest-
No, you didn't give us a
tear it
quote for
down,
but the-
rehab.
Well, but the biggest expense here is the mold issue, right?
No.
I understood
I
that
don't
that
think
was,
there was a mold remediation issue if you had,
that's what
if
it
you
is.
removed the entire building. And that's what they're saying. You remove everything that's in there, put dirt into the basement area, and then shore up the walls in some way through tuck pointing or
Mhm.
some construction method. And then it would be, I imagine there'd probably be a number of things you could do. You could build a new place in there, you could green space and whatever, but at the same time, there wouldn't be anything that the mold would be on. I'm assuming that.
Yeah, it would be cleaned up. We had a person last year, and he's still living in this town, that was looking for a space to put up a building. He was wanting to buy a building on Main Street, and he didn't want to buy the lot over here that needs to be cleaned up because it would cost too much money. And so he had decided to go ahead and develop a spot next to the lumber yard. But if you have that open space between those two buildings, that is something that the city could sell to someone to put a Morton building on it with a nice facade or something like that. It doesn't have to be a green space. It can just, but when they take out all of that and they have to clean out the basement and leave the walls on the basement there to support the buildings, that's what the engineer said. But you gotta take the floor out so that it doesn't make a pool in there. But you could put a cement pad there or make green space, and if somebody comes along and said, hey, I'd like to buy that from the city to put a business there, you could do that. But that can be for another meeting. I can give you all those ideas next time.
I mean, as far as the assessment and everything, you know, if somebody wants to come in and assess and figure out what it would take to rehabilitate it, I mean, the only thing it really costs is our time that we lose in moving on the building right now. I mean,
Right.
my opinion, but
Part of the technicalities of that, remember, we still have the minor one is get around the deed restriction we have, which is not a big one, but that was always.
don't we owe them like $2,000 or something? If we sell it, I mean, if we still maintain the space, then.
But you guys had somewhat the same difficulty in that the transfer to a private entity prior to rehabilitation of the spot creates a problem. Remember, because we didn't have any guarantee, we have no way directly to enforce the requirement to actually clean up the property. It could be sold to somebody and sit in that condition for a long time. Again.
Now, as far as us releasing the.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
our ability to enforce nuisances on Main Street has been limited. You only recently passed that ordinance that.
Yeah, it's kind of on pause right now, isn't it? We've got a work
You
session.
guys just gotta do a work session on
Mhm.
it. The building needs to come down. What do you say?
I'm saying that the danger of transferring it to somebody else in its current condition
Oh, well,
means that somebody, the purchaser then is in charge of when and how that place is removed
Mhm.
and the timing thereof.
would you like me to tell you what, I talked with a, building inspector from Burlingame, and he knows the building. Yeah, and he said that it would cost almost $1 million to repair that and put it, it's easier to get rid of the building you got and put another building in there to rehab.
Well, I'm not saying rehab anything. I'm just
Good.
saying I was worried about the fact that you would have somebody express an interest in doing that, obtain the property in its current condition, and then await for many years another disposition. And that
I see.
continue to degrade.
Yeah.
And Lord knows we don't have much room to talk,
Yeah.
but there is that.
Of course,
moral
whenever you
hazard.
sold it, you could do like what you did up that property there, is put a time limit on when it could be finished.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something you could do in a deed condition.
You're
only
talking
thing-
hypotheticals.
Yeah, I'm just saying that has to be a consideration in anything you do, but your ability to enforce anything of that nature other than, and then a deed restriction normally just means you get the property back.
Yeah, it's like we don't
If
want.
they fail the condition.
Todd, I thought years ago that they were going to release us from all that. They just said they were going to, they just never did anything, or.
I'd have to,
I
every
don't
time,
think we
do
formally asked.
yeah,
I mean,
every time I do this, I don't remember and I have to go get the files.
I think what it was, we were talking about selling it. I think we talked to him a little bit, but that formal request would have been made if we would have actually got to that next step with the party that wanted to buy it.
Yeah, the
So
party,
we never formally made the request to the.
Yeah, and I think the party who actually is interested the most is deceased. And I do not know the status of his estate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed the last two meetings. Did we ever talk about the engineering report that we did pay for?
It
In
was
the-
nothing.
I know it was nothing. I was a little
Yes.
disappointed.
I thought we
about
were
that.
gonna get more out of that.
I did
also.
too.
Yeah.
I,
They did recommend what to do with the walls, but that was as far as I went. But do we want to put this on the next meeting to
yeah, to
fully
get it on,
discuss and then start making
because you guys
steps for it? Because it
requested,
really wasn't on the.
you requested me to talk to him, and I did, and I'll tell you what he said.
We'll
And,
do that at the next meeting.
and we can do that the next meeting.
Why don't we do that?
Dolly on there twice. IGA store and the engineer's report, right?
No, that's the same.
Is that
It's
part
the
of it?
same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good enough.
It's all one blend.
All right. Well, thanks for that input, Dolly. Appreciate it. Mission Valley High School after prom. Someone here to talk about that?
I don't believe they did send you guys this letter at the end of your packet.
Mhm.
They are requesting a donation again. Last year you donated $250.
It's not here.
Okay. I move to donate $250 to the after prom committee.
I'll second.
Have a motion to donate $250 to Mission Valley High School after prom and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. By show of hands, approved, disapproved. Motion passes 3-1.
My turn.
Go ahead, Mr. Buckman.
Thank you. Handout for everybody. Since we have a couple new folks here, I thought it was a good idea to review open meetings rules and some questions I've had brought up in the last couple of months about how best to perform these duties in regards to the act. Now, this is a duty that every council member and the mayor have regarding conduct both during meetings and after. I'm not going to go line by line in this. This is for you guys to review as you wish. I think what I just point out to as a couple of very key elements is when a meeting occurs. And that is in B, subsection 1B of this handout, which is how you qualify for a meeting. It used to be a majority of a quorum, but now it's actually a majority of the members of the governing body. Meaning whenever 3 council members are together, that counts as a meeting if the other 2 aspects are met. They are involved in interactive communication. That means that they are within each other's presence or doing some kind of immediate contact or discussion, and they're discussing the business and affairs of the public body. So just understand that when 3 council members are together, that can trigger the questions of whether or not you're in an interactive conversation and discussing the business of the city. If you're having a meeting that's a COMA violation. So that's why, we talk about these rules about limiting discussions and stuff like that outside. This does not include social gatherings or anything like that. So if everybody's sitting together at the ball game, that's not a violation. Just don't start talking about city business. And the trick of this is, and this arises now in our electronic age with kind of one of those quasi-interactive conversations, which is texting. It's not immediate, talking to each other because people can respond later. But the question being, of course, still is whether that's interactive and meeting the definition. And in this case, there's a special rule that applies to those types of communications if they're not directly interactive, and the intention has to be to reach an agreement on a matter that would require a vote for binding action. So if you are texting each other about the fact that something collapsed at this location, somebody needs to go out there and take a look at it, or something's happened at the lake and somebody go out there, that is not a violation of COMA. If you are saying, hey, Wednesday night or Monday night we got a vote coming up on this thing, on this dock, I don't want it. What do you think? You're violating. So that's kind of the dividing line on those things. So understand that the difference there, the distinction is when you are actually face to face or discussing it on the phone in a group, that's not the test anymore. That's any city business. And when you're doing some kind of delayed communication, the vote is the question. There's also some discussion, there's some details on executive sessions. Those are important, and I'm kind of strict about those when I can be. And that's in the directions on how to do that are in there. There's been some questions about what you can and can't talk about outside of an executive session, meaning what is discussed inside the executive session, what happens if you talk about it outside. And I think what you understand about this is it's not actually an open meeting violation to talk about that information in a public setting afterwards. There's not, the AG's office does not come out and cite you for a violation for that. But what you do is you can expose the city to liability. Because you can, if you're talking about things that are in there, you could run afoul of employment law problems. You can waive attorney-client privilege by discussing what I discussed with you in a meeting. As soon as that information gets out from the meeting, arguably the privilege that you have with me is waived at that point. So that's why, as a practical matter, you do not discuss it. Not that somebody's going to throw you in jail. And I think that's not only good for the city because it protects the city, but also in some instances, the individual themselves can get dragged in to lawsuits for matters like that. And that's not a lot of fun. So that's why it's always wise to try to keep what's in the session out of the public domain as much as you can. That does not mean that the whole topic of what we discuss in there is never to be spoken of again. And there's large sections of things that you can't ever talk about again. It just means that the specific advice I give you or discuss with you should remain privileged. Does that make sense to you guys about my distinction? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, other than that, there's obviously a lot of information in this, but it's always good to refresh yourselves, even if you're an old veteran who's been around for a while. So that's pretty much it, unless anybody's got any questions.
Right. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Luckman. Okay, moving on. Do we have any concerns from the council members or comments?
Oh, go ahead.
I had someone from the lake call and say we're going to booze washed up. It's close enough to shore that if you brought a rake, you could reach up and grab it, pull it in.
Oh, yeah.
Over by 270 Ponderosa.
Mm-hmm.
She called and said if you want to go get it. It's not frozen in. Might not be in a couple of days, I don't know. But anyway, that's where it is. Been meaning to tell you that for a couple of days.
Go try to look. It might have a 150-pound block of concrete
It
still
might.
attached to it
It
as
might.
well.
Take a big rake.
Won't float too far, will it? So you're gonna take care of that, Mike?
I'll go out and take a look at it. Yeah, I don't think it's hurting anything.
Okay, Annie?
First, can you add me to next week for the
Yes,
software
yes.
so we can discuss that. In the last 6 months, I know we had 2 issues. One of them being the dock. What was it called? Moratorium. And we talked about work sessioning, basically who would qualify for a dock in the future. I wondered if we were still going to plan for that work session. And then the other one was that we passed the ordinance about Main Street, but we still haven't had that work session either. So I don't know if we want to do together but since we're past the holidays, it's time to, I guess, get back on the force.
I didn't know what there was to discuss. I know when you mentioned
Which
that
one?
earlier, like on Main Street.
On Main Street, I think,
So didn't it just say after a certain period of time, this is kicking in and here's the fines and
I mean, I guess.
I mean, I
thought
don't
we were in a
know.
work session.
that's kind of where I thought we were at. People would receive letters and
It's kind of on hold, isn't it? We've stopped. I mean, we gave the initial letter kind of explaining what the ordinance detailed from what I understood. And then we had some kickback. So obviously we discussed it in the meeting. And then I thought there was a little more to it, but maybe I'm
I don't know.
mistaken.
I
Or
didn't
have we
remember.
started again we haven't sent anything else out, right? Do you want to check back and see what our notes were on that?
When
and
did we
see?
pass that? I mean, was that
I don't
Gosh,
remember.
it was
was it
been 4
last year or was
months
it
or
the year
something.
before it? Oh, it's okay.
it
That's
was
short.
last year.
Okay.
Are you talking about the building,
Yeah.
Fifth Hill building thing?
Main
Yeah.
Street, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The
Okay.
businesses.
Said moratorium and
No, sorry,
notes.
dock moratorium, Main Street.
That's the
buildings.
last
2
time
different.
we use a business moratorium.
I thought we had one.
The vacant building ordinance, yeah, I can't remember when that was.
It's been at least a year.
And we haven't actually fined anyone, right?
No,
That's
Well, I
Kind
haven't
of
been
need
here
to
a
come
year,
up-
so it hasn't been a year.
okay.
yeah.
It was last summer when it was passed, because if you guys passed that after I come on,
Okay.
so I haven't been here a year.
I would think we would kind of need to come up with a process and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
have
let's do that.
direction
not defined.
on, yeah. Where to go with that.
Any other council comments?
Do we need to schedule those things?
We do. We need to schedule a work session as soon as possible. I have some comments I want to make.
Okay.
Hopefully I won't take too much time to do this. First thing I want to do is I want to recognize Dolly and I want to thank her for her service as mayor for the past 4 years. Appreciate it. Next thing I want to mention is that over the last couple of months since the election, I've been told by numerous people of all the things that I was going to implement. Now, where they came up with this information, I have no idea. But I want to set the record straight. I'm not bringing in a Walmart grocery store. I am not, the neighborhood store like they have down here at 3rd and McVicker. Yeah. I'm not bringing in a Casey's store. I'm not bringing in a Dollar General store or any other franchise store to this community, mainly because we don't have enough people here to support them. And they themselves would turn us down if we tried to get something in here. So any of you folks or those that are listening at home are concerned that we're going to get these things, it's not going to happen. And in all probability, it won't happen during my 4 years as mayor. The other thing I've been hearing is that one of my first priorities was going to be to remove all city employees and replace them with people of my choice. Happening either. So for those city employees or their families that are concerned about those folks losing their jobs, forget it. That ain't happening. I will add, though, that as the mayor, if city employees aren't doing their jobs, we will address it and take whatever actions necessary to get them in compliance with what we need to do moving forward. And then it's up to them. If they do the job, their job is safe. If they don't do the job, it's their decision not to do it. It becomes our decision to remove them. So with that said, we're not going to do those things. Okay, we're not bringing in the excess places. Todd, even your job's in line. I've had a lot of people tell me that I was going to fire you too. No, that ain't happening.
Sorry.
Maybe next meeting. Not tonight.
Yeah,
I'm like, darn it.
I just got Tim moved over there. It's going great.
I do want to schedule a workshop for the council, and it will be open to the public as well. And basically things that I've got ideas on how to improve the city, fundraisers that we need to do. I want to do a 5-year plan. You mentioned that. It's the first time that I'm going to come to city council meetings that I heard anybody talk about a 5-year plan. Yeah, I'm saying since I've been I haven't been here to every single meeting that you guys have attended. I'm just saying it's the first time I've heard of it. Do you have a 25-year
budget, but
do you have a 25-year plan? No. Okay, these are things that we'll be discussing, and fundraisers. I've got some really good ideas that I think we can get some ad hoc committees in here to work on throughout the year. I don't think I'm going to have any
You
standard
don't want any?
committees
I
set
don't want
up.
any more committees.
That's on an ongoing basis year after year, and that might develop later. So my question is to you guys, how do we go about setting up the meeting, and when do you want to do it?
How many topics are you thinking about?
Well, if we have
Discuss it.
if we have to have 2 sessions, we can do that. We can break it down.
Well,
How about next meeting? I come up with an agenda for my ideas, and then
Okay.
you guys can decide. when we
because it
get
sounded
together
like
for
we
that.
had 2 topics before you started speaking. And I believe
Now we
you
have a few more.
Well, my topics were in my mind before these were even discussed. So yeah, there's going to be the things that you brought up and the things I brought
I
up.
don't care who was first, Terry.
I
I'm a total number.
don't either, Tim. And like I said, if you would like to have an agenda of my idea for
That'd be great.
something in a work session, I will have it at the next council meeting. Fair enough?
Sounds good.
And then we can decide. So keep that
And my
back of your mind.
idea is as soon as we can maybe get all of us together.
Yeah, I'm not thinking.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you guys got 2 weeks to think about that when you want to get together. I will tell you right now, February 14th, I will not be here. I'll tell you that right now. If
Well,
you
I
want to have
won't
it
be
then
either.
have it. I'll be
Yeah,
at
that's not
the Super Bowl.
Oh, I
least
thought
the Super-
you
at least
So you're going on a
Hot
date.
day.
At least the Super Bowl party.
Oh.
I'll be closer to it than anybody else probably. So that's all I've got to say for the moment. I do want to thank the city council members for being here on time at 7. The meeting started at 7. That's also going to be a goal of mine. If we put a notice out to the public that we've got a meeting starting at 7, that's when I want it to start. Not 5 after, not 10 after, but at 7 o'clock. If we can't meet at 7 o'clock on a consistent basis, then we'll adjust the starting time so that we can meet on time. Okay? That's all I've got.
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Got a second. All in favor? This meeting has adjourned.
Bill, relative to
Yes.
I was just getting ready.
I'm the kind of person that will
My
forget
number
that.
two
I don't know
son.
how you can do it.
I recognize the voice.
Well, I haven't, I've still got a few brain cells. but-
He thinks we don't have any-
Forget
he thinks we don't have anything in common, and I tell him he's gonna have one of these. He
Yeah.
swears up and down he's not, but he's working on it
I was
already.
gonna say.
He's already.
Why are you staring at me like that?
He was on the council for a number of years.
Yes, he was.
Just wondering if you're gonna ask for back pay for when you're on the park.
Oh, man.